Okay, we're going to start in the next part of our three-part adventure in the future and past of online games. As explained to most of you who've been here, we are looking at the future out of the specific vantage point from a company, and we've got had Heiko on from Big Point, and now we've got Pascal ZUTA from Aeria Games, who have obviously a slightly different perspective and hopefully very interesting information for us about what the future might look like from their point of view. After this presentation, we're going to go into the panel immediately, so you can leave the room for a small toilet break, but please come back immediately. And we're just going to go on with hopefully a lot of questions from your end, and otherwise I need to come up with a couple of one. Okay, so without further ado, Pascal, thank you.
Hi everybody, so my name... Thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Pascal ZUTA. I'm the CEO of Aeria Games Europe. We are a publisher of, we used to be a publisher only of PC client games. Then we added browser games into our portfolio, and recently we pushed strong on mobile games, which we are pretty successful at right now as well. So I will just give you like a brief introduction to Aeria Games. Then I will talk a little bit about like the generic things that you know, business going cross-platform, these things. And then I have like a little other perspective to share about how Aeria is actually seeing the market and how Aeria wants to enter or wants to successfully continue to compete in a market that is changing and that is going through a lot of new developments very quickly. So Aeria Games, just for you who don't know, it's a very international company with now 5 offices after a merger with a Japanese company called GamePod, with offices in Tokyo, Korea, US, Latin America, and Germany, and therefore a very international perspective on games, because we do see the trends in Asia probably earlier than most of the other companies, and we've developed a competency to bring these games to the very successful markets in Western markets, US, Europe, and recently Latin America. And our community is not as big as Heiko's, but it's very hardcore. It's 60 million people, and if you look at it, we have a very international player base, reflecting the structure of the offices that I showed you before. We have, in the past months and years, focused a lot on a distribution platform, which some of you may know. It's called Ignite. It's a little bit like Origins that EA has built, or Steam. We've managed to get not only our own games on that, but also other games like Tribes Ascent, for example, are distributed through the Ignite platform. And Aeria Mobile is our most recent initiative, where we've published a game that has been now in the top 20 in France, for example, in the top grossing for the last 4 months straight. So just to give you a little bit of a picture, it's a very broad company, very international, focusing on the mid to hardcore segments. And now let's look a little bit at the past and the future of games. So in the past, we know there was a lot around the desktop PC. We had Windows as an operating system, mouse and keyboard to play the games. This has changed, and in the future, we'll see more tablets, we see mobile phones, and we see new operating systems coming up, iOS, Android, Windows now joining the game, and we have different ways of handling a gameplay, right? Without touch and the gyro. These things are coming up now. And also, and this is one thing that has bothered us a lot, because we had to adapt to this. We were one of these guys where everybody said, yeah, you're the free-to-play people. You just bring these crappy old games from Asia, and then you transport them to the Western markets. And I know that a lot of people thought so. And actually, they were right. But at that time, it still worked, right? Right now, the situation has changed. And it's getting pretty damn hard. If you just have like the 100,000th copycat of something coming from China and you want to make a success in the Western markets, it's getting harder. So you have to invest in quality. This is an artwork from our upcoming game, Scarlet Blade, which will be very sexy. We'll have a very unique positioning, and where we will focus on an IP and building it into a brand, building it into a global franchise that can hopefully help us be attractive to many gamers around the world. So we're going away from these games that have been built in Asia for Asia. We're going to games that probably still are built in Asia, because a lot of studios are there, but they are attractive to broader audiences because they are developed with a Western audience in mind. This goes back to a similar point. If you look at our banner here on the left side of Shire, there was a time where you just said, hey, we're free to play, and we're in German. And you had many people streaming onto your service. That was the good time. I always call it, that was the gold rush. Everybody could be successful in that time, right? You just bring a game here, you have a crappy translation, and you get it out there, and it would work. These times are over, unfortunately. Right now, if you want to be successful in the markets, you're handling the pressure of very high acquisition cost. You have competition. You have people that have games that probably look prettier than yours, and you want to stand out. You want to make sure that you have a return on your marketing investment, and that's why analytics have become much more important. So while in the past, there was practically no skill needed. It was just to have a game and be out there and be free to play, and you were attractive enough. In the future, you will see that this gold rush is over and the markets are consolidating. You see that right now we still have a lot of players in the markets, but we don't believe that there's going to be the same number of players in the market in a year time from now. And here's why. If you look at PC games, right? This follows a cycle, and this hype cycle is probably now the core of the little speech that I wanted to give today. We see that this hype cycle comes along again and again, and we feel also that it's speeding up. And for the PC games, probably the cycle started in 2009, and we saw a lot of companies that were just growing in this market pretty easily. There was Big Point, there was Gameforge, there was Aeria Games, Travian. Be it in browser, be it in client, it was pretty easy because the market was just, pushing everybody up. And then you came to this peak of inflated expectations where everybody thought this will continue forever. And we went into this phase that is called the trough of disillusionment, which is a pretty hard word for it, but that was last year. And I remember how I was speaking at a couple of conferences. Actually, the last conference that I was at, the Browser Games Forum in Offenbach, I was sitting there with Heiko as well, where I said, hey guys, we all have to admit last year was shitty. It was really bad, right? The free-to-play industry suffered. For the first time, right? We'd never had that before, that all the industry was shook by a crisis. And, I think it's very important that we all admit this, that we say, hey, things have been easier before, man, and now we have to work our way out of this. And I think we're on a good way. We're finding new games, finding games that are more attractive. Heiko and Big Point is going along with licensing bigger IPs, like the Game of Thrones IP, for example, just to give our games a little bit of an edge and make sure that people are still interested in our product. So these things are coming up, and I hope that they bring us to a plateau level where we can finally continue to be successful without the high expectations that we had before, but also without the pessimism that we probably had throughout the last year. So this is it for PC games. If you look at PC games, it's not the only cycle that we see. We see the same for social games. That was probably a year or two later, right, when Facebook opened up and Zynga was shooting up. A lot of people went into these markets. They had all these great expectations for Facebook to be the next platform to deliver their players. At some point, they started taxing the game companies with a 30% tax on all the virtual items, and it kind of blew up. Mobile games was the next hype cycle that we saw. And I do believe that for the mobile games, right now, it's very easy to lose money. It's not very easy to make money. There are a lot of people that want to go in there because it's right there where the expectations are inflated and where the hopes are high. And we have to make sure and be cautious as leaders of businesses, as developers, as publishers, that we will not be shook too heavily by the trough of disillusionment. When things go down, we still want to have the power to survive and stay there. So, and this leads me a little bit to another thought, or when Jan asked me to join this panel and we were discussing a little bit how can we what do we actually want to talk about, he said one thing that I found is really interesting. I was thinking about that a lot. How is your company handling the changing markets? And why is it handling it differently? What is the DNA of your company that makes you react to changes? And I was looking back at the history of Aeria Games. And Aeria Games is actually a very Asian company. I'm the only non-Vietnamese on the management team, which is pretty tough sometimes. But it's also a rewarding experience. So let me tell you a little bit of a background on one thing that I think that may fit here to explain, how Aeria is actually handling the changes in the market. If you look back in the 1970s, there was a new thing, color TV, right? Color TVs, and they were produced by Grundig and by Siemens, big German companies, and they were really expensive at that time, and they were a super high-class product, right? And everybody was like, wow, these things are amazing, and they were also very expensive. And then the Japanese came in, and they said, hey, you know what, I can build a TV, it's not as cool as yours, but it's cheaper, and everybody can have it. And the Japanese rolled up the market completely. The Koreans followed. Grundig and Siemens, I don't think they're still producing TVs, right? So this market was disrupted by people coming in from the low end of the market with actually perceived poor quality, but they won the market. A more recent example of that is probably Apple and the iPhone. So when they started with the iPhone, everybody was like, man, this is awesome, right? The first presentation of Steve Jobs pulling the finger over the touch screen, opening his iPhone. This was amazing. It was a new step into the market. They also entered, like Grundig and Siemens, with high-quality product, the iPhone. Everybody wants to have it. It's super sexy. And they got really disrupted, and they have now facing a lot of, they've been giving away most of their market share to Samsung and to the Android platform. Again, it's Asian companies coming into a market, disrupting from the lower side of the market, coming in with lower prices and bringing a product that before only few could afford, bringing it to the masses. And now think of retail gaming. You have the Grundig and the Siemens and the Apples. They're probably being the EAs and the guys that are selling these boxed games for 60 euro. Not everybody can afford this. 60 euro you can afford one, but probably you can't afford 3 or 4 or 5. And then there's an Asian business model, free-to-play, that comes along and that invades this market and brings up a new business model that suddenly opens up the market for everybody. And I think that the success of mobile gaming was not possible before the rise of free-to-play. Because right now everybody is playing these games. Not everybody is paying, but you see that everybody has really some games on his mobile phone. And this is something new. Again, the market has been disrupted by an Asian model. And Aeria is a very Asian company. We don't create new trends. We have never been the ones that have been very innovative. But if we see one thing that works, we will put all our resources against it and try to execute very quickly and roll out that market and gain a lot of market share. This is how Aeria has in the past acted and in the past tried to win in the market. We've seen one thing that works well, and we jumped on it and tried to execute it globally and find big markets for our products. So I hope that this is not too abstract to understand. What I want to say, basically, is that Aeria's DNA is the one, is a very Asian one. Not the one of an innovator, but one that executes quickly on an opportunity that has come along and that has been very successful for us so far. Unfortunately, for our employees, we're not the ones who are developing the next Guild Wars or so, but we've been successful with these games that come in as a contender in a market that offer value to people that probably weren't able to afford the big games in the first place. So, looking back at this is dangerous for everybody who says, I want to be the one who is the first who builds a League of Legends, who is the first to build that new kind of gameplay, who's the first to enter mobile markets. But what we have done successfully in the past was that we've built a company that could support all these things that are coming up. So if a new technology is coming up, we have a good we're very confident that we will be quick at adapting it. We've built tools that around our games that can support everything that is new. So in the moment that social games come up, there's a lot that we learned for PC games that we can use to win in the market of social games. Now that mobile games comes up, we're using our analytics software, for example, that we've built for the PC games world. We're using them for the mobile games world, and that helps us not losing money when we do marketing, right? So in the end, what we're trying to do is we're trying to go away from these hype cycles. They are very sexy, and people are jumping on it. But what we've always been trying to do is build something around it that we can leverage with every hype cycle that comes along. And if the next hype goes into whatever, we hope that we have built competency and skills in our company and a team that understands gaming well enough so that whatever it is, we can react to it and quickly adapt without having to lead it. This is everything I wanted to talk about today. It's the first time that I've been talking about this story, and I hope that it wasn't too abstract. So I'm happy to answer questions if there are any. Thank you.
Come on, guys. Tell me down. One question.
Hello. Just one question, because there was one word that you haven't mentioned that pretty much was in every other talk, I think, and that's like cross-platform today. What's Aeria stance on cross-platform games? Are you actually, how you say, encouraging that in your own IPs? I'm not really sure you have own IPs on the games that are developed for that. I mean, you have now several branches, right?
Yeah. So the games that we have are exclusive. So to answer that question, it's exactly that, right? When we're looking at new opportunities, we always look at opportunities where somebody has been successful. And we have not seen that cross-platform game yet that has been successful. So I think to keep it simple, we're not the ones who will start. We will be the ones who will look at it and see, okay, what is working? Once it's working, we will try to find games that satisfy exactly that need. Because right now, we don't know whether it's going to be the companion app that just does something to help the big MMORPG or so, or whether it's going to be like a standalone game that you can play on each of these platforms. We don't know yet, but we're watching it carefully, and we do believe that this is definitely, probably the next hype cycle to come. Very silent, right?
They're impressed.
Yes? Oh, thanks.
The idea of not being the first in the market or innovative. Thinking the idea of not being the first or the innovative part in the whole industry, the idea thought to an end, there won't be anyone to be innovative in the industry anymore. What will you do? So if you say, okay, we all only copy ideas or whatever, where do you get the new ideas from if the new ideas won't be there or won't sell well?
No, I think that in this world, fortunately, we are all different people, right? And there are some people that are genuinely interested in being very innovative and being the leading edge. And there are people who just say, hey, we want to be really strong on operations and execution. And in most cases, those are not the same people. So it's kind of two different approaches to solving the same, or to building a company, right? And for us, it was always to be the guys who, once they see an opportunity, they can build it into something really big. And by the way, we do have developers where we say, hey, okay, let's just give this a shot, right? We see a developer that we really trust, and we just think, oh, whatever, let's just go for it. And these people then see that we probably will not be as creative as other publishers working with them on the game, but that we will focus on what we do best, which is monetization, international rollout. And I don't say that I don't like being innovative. I think it's very, very it's great, and it's awesome to see innovative products, and I love to play innovative games. That's not it. It's just, for us, we found our place in another spot.
Hi. Over here to the left.
Yeah.
Last year there's been a huge amount of very high quality MMO releases, but most of them haven't performed as good as the companies have hoped.
Yeah.
Do you see the market as saturated on the PC sector? I mean, there's also a lot of free-to-play games that haven't performed very well. There is just a huge amount of MMOs compared to 10 years ago when there was EverQuest, Ultima, and maybe 2 other or 3 others.
Yes. Yes. I think it's pretty saturated at the moment, and if you don't stand out, you will lose. There's no question about that. I think right now, while before you could just say, you know, it's German and it's free, right now you have to stand out. You have to show the people why the heck they should bother downloading your game, why they should stay loyal to your game. So your game has to be really good, and you have to stand out. You have to make sure that people understand that there's a specific reason why they should be playing your game, and then attract this target group. And if you fail to do that because you just have like the 20th fantasy MMO, then most likely you'll be in trouble. And if you look at the new product launch that we have, for those of you online, just type in Scarlet Blade and look at the artworks. They're extremely sexy. This is, you know, a new direction, a new way, artwork style that we're trying out there. And this really stands out. I've not seen any other MMORPG that has been looking this way. And this is why we give it a shot. You know, we're traveling. I just returned from Tokyo and from Korea, and we're traveling through all these territories, and we see like loads of MMORPGs themed around dragons and so. I don't know. We don't give it a shot right now because it's too saturated. Goodness, is that silent here.